Hello everyone, welcome to the Arcane Gate. I'm Dinar.
And I am Charles Walker, FallMuck20, and today we are joined by a long-term friend of the page. I nearly called you by your private Instagram name for a second there. LitGamingArena host Justin.
Yeah, well, I mean, my other stuff is all public too. I don't.
It is okay.
Nothing of mine is private right now, anyway.
I wasn't sure since when we first met, you were messaging me on. We responded to a live stream and one. Then you're like, "Hey, could you message me on this one?" I'm like, "Okay."
Yeah. Well, yeah. Oh, yeah. That was. I responded to you on. Oh crap. What is the name of that Instagram? I haven't been on that one in a while. I think it was.
I don't know. It's one you said you were doing as an experiment.
Yeah, I was doing an Instagram experiment to see how many followers I can get by just basically following people. and nothing else. Hyperpunks, that was it.
Yeah,
that was my little project Instagram was Hyperpunks. Yeah, that was just me trying to do a little experiment and see how if I could game the system at all. Did work out, but yeah.
That's what the system does, man. It games you.
Yeah, I think I never cracked 1,000 followers on it. Oh, let's see. Now it's. I got to change my password because someone tried logging in as me, so now I can't see anything.
Oh, jeez.
Someone wants that prime real estate Hyperpunks, that happened in Instagrammer.
You got so many followers, man. You just left it for a while, then it just blew up on interest.
Well, I think I probably lost a couple hundred. I got to 980, and then it just kind of over time sunk down. I think I'm maybe at 800 now-ish, I want to say, but it's all just garbage. No one interacts. It's all just people that follow other people to get more followers. So I guess it's success. I didn't have a hypothesis for the experiment, so
you just got the results.
Yeah, I have results, but there's no scientific method being employed, so.
You got to the top of the mountain, just didn't know how to get down.
Exactly.
Oh, but that is interesting. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what exactly is the LitGamingArena?
Oh, God. Okay, well, the LitGamingArena was, we wanted to start an esports bar, and one of the methods we wanted to try to maybe kind of gain a following or build revenue was to try to do online content because we didn't have any seed money or anything. So and we wanted to have some sort of following, so that way when we start the place, then we can say, hey, we have this following and we're in Denver, and I mean I'm not, but I mean I'm doing all the work remote basically. So but we wanted to, so my whole thing was I'm into podcasts. And my brother-in-law who started the company, he said he wanted to start a podcast network. And I'm like, oh, well, I've always wanted to start a podcast. So count me in. So I joined up sometime after he had already kind of been underway a little bit, and he was kind of getting started with some of the streaming and the content and whatnot. And then I joined and I started the LitGamingArena podcast, and that has evolved over time a little bit. At first, it was just kind of, we didn't really know for sure what we wanted to do. We just wanted to talk about video game news and what we've been playing, and that kind of following the Giant Bomb format a little bit, because that's kind of I guess for a video game podcast is kind of the gold standard for a video game podcast. They're kind of, if not one of the, if not the biggest video game podcast. And so I'm like, well, I mean, that formula must work, so I want to try doing that. And our episodes kept getting longer and longer. So at first the chemistry wasn't quite there, and so we were going through stuff really fast, and we struggled to even get episodes that were over an hour at first, but within the first year, our episodes grew to 3.5 hours long. and it got to a point where like we're just talking way too long, and no one new wanting to check out the podcast is gonna check out a podcast that's almost 4 hours long. That's a big time investment. So we split everything up. So we have a news show, and we have the actual just the LGA cast. So we split up the news. That makes about each show about 90 minutes, which is great. I think that's a perfect like sweet spot for a podcast. I mean, commuting and whatnot. But that's kind of where we've grown into is 2 episodes a week, and yeah, we just love talking about all the news. The funny part was I was like, this would be a great way for me to actually play some of the games that I have, because I'm terrible about actually playing my games. And the ironic part was that then I was focusing all my time on doing the podcast and not actually playing games. So I would come back to the table after a week and be like, oh, hey Justin, what you played? I played Podcast Simulator 2020. I'm getting more into the games, and that's partially why I got a little bit behind this week, because I got really like drug into a couple games at the same time. And I'm like, I just want to play games. I want to edit a podcast right now, so I got a little bit behind. So, I mean, and then there are some changes with my work made me really exhausted, so I would just get home and pass out on the couch instead of doing my work.
I got you. I'm now in the dilemma of either sacrifice sleep or finish Persona 5, and
oh my gosh,
lately I'm pretty far in Persona 5.
Can you even finish Persona 5?
You can't on the first run. You have to. You basically have to play it again, and I'm not even finished, and I'm 100 hours in. So.
Oh my gosh. It's
more the
Japanese
game finishes me.
Yeah. If you want to be a Japanese person, play Persona 5.
See, that is why I don't play it. I already don't sleep as is. I don't have enough hours.
You're playing the other life simulator, Animal Crossing, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, true.
See, life will get you. If not in real life, it will in your virtual life.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I bought like I think 200,000 bells worth of turnips, and I'm looking for a profit.
Well, Kristen hasn't gotten the stock market yet, but she's really into getting in debt again, it seems. And a few other friends of mine and like that. Ugh.
Yeah, I get like 4 hours of sleep a night. It's okay.
Oh yeah, like I'll be editing till like 5 a.m. Have to be in a conference call at 8 a.m.
Yep, that's about my life. I mean, I go to work. I wake up at 4:30 in the morning for work, because I start work at 5. So I'm waking up when you're going to bed, but I'm also going to sleep at like midnight.
Yeah, I get you there. I've gotten better about sleep lately. Like, I make jokes, but I'm not staying up all night to play it, though it's tempting, because that and Final Fantasy VII Remake came out like within a week of each other.
Oh yeah. Yeah, Marcus got sucked into he really got sucked into that. He already platinumed it. So
wow.
Yeah, he just messaged me like within a week, and he was just like, yeah. I platinumed it. I'm like, holy crap, dude. And he's like, yeah, and the sad thing is you actually have to play through the whole game twice in order to platinum it. I'm like, oh my god. But he was kind of during that time he was doing the whole quarantine thing. He wasn't he wasn't going into work at the time, so it was just, I don't know what else to do. I'm just playing video games all day.
Yeah, that probably my boat too. Work has not changed at all for me, so yeah, I've not had as much time to game. If anything, my hours got increased because one of our employees is a type 1 diabetic, and two of our employees that were working by themselves, isolated together. One of them had a fever, so both of them got both of them got quarantined for 2 weeks.
Oh man, that's rough. We haven't had anybody get quarantined at my work yet.
That's good.
Luckily, but we're kind of on the upswing. We only had one new case in our whole state since yesterday, so.
I mean, yeah, that's good. Since your state in particular. Do you mind if I say? Like, is that a secret or what?
Wait, what?
What state you're in a secret or what?
Oh,
I don't want to say it.
Oh, no, it's actually in my Twitter bio now.
Okay,
I switched it to say both because it does because everyone just assumes I'm in Denver and they're like, oh, you can smoke that weed, right? And I'm like, nope.
Okay, because I was going to say Montana's got to be the expert at social distancing, because isn't there like 100 miles per one person?
Yeah, basically. Yeah, I mean, I live in the biggest city, but I mean, it's still, it's super easy to stay away from other people in Montana.
So I was there once, and I remember that's something a tour guide told us was that there's one escalator in the entire state, and that's in the airport.
Oh,
it's such a random detail, but yeah.
Yeah. Our airport in Billings used to be an international airport, and it's not anymore because it's too small. Yeah, it's sad. But I don't know, I enjoy it up here. I sometimes wish I could live actually in like Denver or Colorado, anywhere, but it's insanely more expensive to live there, and I like not having sales tax. It's really enjoyable.
That does sound nice. I've never experienced that.
Yeah. But at the same time, like when you buy stuff like electronics or an Xbox or whatever, something with fixed pricing, that money doesn't go as far as, let's say you're in LA and you're like $500 is like nothing if you're living in LA, but $500 when you live in Montana, it's like that's like half my mortgage.
I got you.
Yeah, so like the property tax is higher.
Yeah, property tax is actually a lot higher up here, and we still have issues with local funding, which is kind of like a whole different issue. Like now people are like, oh, we need to start like a local option sales tax so that we can fund our stuff in the town, and other people are like, no, we don't want sales tax because you're not going to lower our property tax. And I mean, they're not wrong, I guess, but I don't know. I can see the benefits and the downsides to both, because I, as much as I know we need more money in the city, I also really enjoy not paying a sales tax.
It's fair. But real quick, welcome to the Real Estate in Montana Facts podcast. I hope you
Oh yeah, well if you listen to like not our last episode, but the episode before that, we had a whole segment on Montana politics for no reason. Because it was just related to like the coronavirus, so we just like ended up talking politics for a little bit, and I'm like, okay, I guess this is the politics corner. Actually had some people message me about that, and they're like, I like the Montana politics segment. Yeah, I'm like, yeah, sorry.
But yeah, onto the show's topic though. So talking about podcasts, so that's really what you do, and yeah, you've been on a D&D podcast before, haven't you? The Player Found podcast.
Yes, you're almost there. It's Missing Role Player Found.
Shoot. I feel bad. I've listened to him, so I feel silly now.
At Roll Found on Twitter is where they primarily reside.
That's probably what I was thinking, and it just got swapped over somewhere in my brain.
Yeah, I was actually just listening to them on my way back home.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it was really funny because I heard a quote where she, Snow was going over, and they're doing like a secondary campaign called the Gate Chronicles right now, and the Snow, who's a player in the normal campaign, is the DM in this one, and she said she was going over character bios, and she said bungee jumping, but she definitely misspoke and said bungee dumping. And so I just tweeted about it, and I said I'm gonna lose. I'm I know she misspoke and said bungee jumping, and I'm gonna lose sleep trying to visualize what that's supposed to look like.
I had a mental image, but it ain't pretty.
I mean, it's not far from the actual thing.
So I
Bungee
tweeted
jumping.
that out. Yeah, I tweeted that out a little bit ago, so hopefully they'll see it.
Bungee jumping. The G-force will cure any constipation.
Yeah, right. I'm stuck on what the harness would look like for something like that.
You know, at the fair, where they have like them trampolines, you harness yourself into like legs and arms. Assume it's like that, except your legs are hiked up and you're not wearing pants.
Yeah, it's that, but there's a colostomy bag just hanging out the bottom of it. Because they can't just leave it there. They got to be environmentally friendly.
That's feces. It'll fertilize.
Yeah, I guess that works too.
Depends on where you are.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't want to
It's
do
like-
bungee jumping in the middle of New York.
No, you're like on an overpass or something. You're going to make a lot of people mad.
I feel like that
Yeah.
needs to be quoted.
Oh, jeez. I'm just digging myself a hole with this new quote feature.
Ah,
I say a lot of dumb things on purpose, and it's gonna all come back to haunt me.
nice.
That's the purpose of it.
D&D
It's just
podcasts
the
are
shit.
definitely fun, so I want to do one of my own someday, but I don't have the experience to GM yet. So
Yeah. Well, it's one of the things you just really gotta do, like, because it's kind of like what I've learned being a parent, where you're just like, I'll do it when I'm ready, but you're
Yeah.
never really ready.
yeah, exactly. You're never really ready. I think for me though, it's like I need to actually do some sort of planning for a campaign, and part of that involves me going through the books and finding stuff and all the rules that I don't quite know. And it's like, between producing my own podcast and playing games as it is, and also being a parent, I don't have time to actually construct any sort of campaign. So someone else in our group was going to attempt to do all that stuff, and I'm like, look, because we have some friends that are like, I really want to do like a D&D podcast. I'm like, that's great, but one of you has to DM, because I don't have time. I have the equipment, I can set it up, but someone else has to be the DM and do all that stuff because I don't have the time.
Yeah, that's fair. That's kind of how I got thrown into DMing at one point, where it was kind of for the sake of not a lot of in where me and Treywick first met in our college. There was a place where most of the nerds hung out on the campus, and one guy just stopped his campaign, and next thing you know, I mentioned, yeah, I may be interested in D&D DMing, and the DM just like, all right, I'm done, and he just threw his notebook at me. It's like, your turn. And I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah,
Ugh.
you just kind of gotta dive into it somehow. I'm hoping that someday I'll be able to myself. Maybe work will die down in some way where I'm not working 50 hours a week, so I can have some extra time. But that will probably just end up translating to me just spending more time with my family. So
Yeah, that's fair. That's why I looked out that I played D&D with my wife. So yeah.
yeah, but it's really cool. I really like I really like the concept. But it was really nice to be able to play a game and do it on a podcast where all I had to do was just be a player, because I didn't have to worry about actually setting anything up, so it worked out really nicely.
Yeah, I got you. But what was that like exactly? Like, is there any difference between playing on a podcast or playing in person, you would think?
I think there's a little bit of, I mean, because I know a lot of people like to use figures and whatnot, and using like a mat on a table. But I did play a little bit of GURPS once with a group, and it was all just kind of theater of the mind. So we didn't use like the rules of um, like distance, like hey, I'm gonna walk over here. Okay, you have to count however many squares, or I guess in the GURPS case, hexagons. Um, you don't have to count all those hexagons to go this far. It was all just kind of say what you're doing, and then you just kind of play by ear. And that seems more along the lines of how a lot of the internet stuff is. But then like you have tools like Roll20, which allows you to do like the whole having maps and having characters and whatnot, and that's what they use to facilitate their games online. And that worked out really well because we all had our characters, we had our character sheet. And for that one, like it has like all the rule sets and stuff built in, so you can just like build a character within that without having to just have a pen and paper character sheet. So it actually kind of made building a character really super easy.
Okay. Yeah, that works, and that sounds pretty cool, because to me it's really not much different, because I guess it's just me just playing the way I normally do, but I don't know, because I know some people like the Actual Run D&D podcast also like to run a game outside of it, I guess, to take the pressure off, because I'm pretty sure Critical Role does that, where they have a home game that's just them. And I can see it if you're in a position like theirs, but me, while we got some eyes on us, it isn't their numbers of every choice they make is questioned by the internet.
Yeah, I know there are definitely people out there that do like a home game, and then like this is like the podcast game. That seems to be like a pretty common thing. Yeah, and I can see like it really doesn't this like the tools and stuff that we have on the internet, like Roll20, like really kind of bridge the gap between doing it online or doing it in person. So like, especially now where everybody's like self-quarantined, like I'm sure Roll20 servers are just bogged down as all heck with all the people trying to use it, because it was already not that fast in the first place. But it's really cool. I really like that as a tool. There was another show that I was gonna like. I don't know if we're still continuing it. We only got through one episode, but it was going to be, I think it was going to be called the Cyber Wilds, and we were playing Cyberpunk 2020. And that entire rule set is built in the Roll20 as well. And it was really easy because it was one of those things where we could use like the whole thing on Roll20 to build the character. And if you don't quite know the rules like super well, like if you want to do any sort of roll, all you got to do is just click on it and it does all the rolls for you. So you're not sitting there trying to like, okay, how many dice do I got to roll? Okay, and then you got to sit there count it up. It does all the work for you. So that was really cool, but we only got through one episode of it, and the guy running it got really super busy and had kind of like a work change where he wasn't able to spend as much time doing even his own podcast, so he even put his own podcast on hold. So I don't know if that's ever going to continue, which bummed me out because that one episode we did was super fun.
That sounds like it. Like, that's also something I've been curious about, because aside from the Star Wars tabletop game, the only one I've ever been really super interested in was Cyberpunk or like Shadowrun or stuff like that.
Yeah, so, and Shadowrun I feel like is really, really, I don't know how different they are, but it seemed really similar to Shadowrun because it seemed like all the classes were pretty much like the same names. Like you have your fixers and all that fun stuff. And the only reason I know about Shadowrun is because I listened to Harmontown and they play Shadowrun on Harmontown, and that was probably like one of the best eras of Harmontown.
I didn't know that. Was that before Harmon Quest or after Harmon Quest?
Smack dab in the middle. Because what happened with Harmon Quest is because they started in Harmontown. They started doing. Have you listened to Harmontown or watched it at all? Or
I haven't listened to it, but I've seen Harmon Quest.
Okay, so Harmontown started after Dan Harmon got fired from doing Community, and so he kind of basically needed like some sort of out to help himself out mentally, and someone approached him, and actually it was Kumail Nanjiani's wife approached him and said, "Hey, let's do a podcast." And so she basically produced the podcast for him and got him to do it. And they set up in this little comic book shop and they started doing this podcast. And after a few episodes, they're like, "We should play like D&D on stage. Is there anybody in the audience that happens to be a dungeon master?" And this dude Spencer, who happens to be the dungeon master for Harmon Quest, just happened to be in the audience, and it was like his first time ever going to the Harmontown show. And he just kind of raised his hand. They brought him up on stage, and then they formulated like, "Hey, we're gonna play D&D." And so like then next week he came back with some character sheets that he built for them, and they started playing D&D on the show. And that's basically how that's like the superhero origin story of Spencer Crittenden. Is he just got pulled up from the audience on Harmontown. And
that's interesting.
Yeah, it's really cool that he's in the position he is because of that.
Yeah.
So they just started doing all that, but then after a while they're like, Dan Harmon kind of had this idea. He's like, "I kind of want to do this, but like do like an animated version of it, but have us be doing the show like this, but have it animated." So like he actually pitched it to a company, and they bought it, and he put Spencer in charge of being the GM, and they kind of rolled with that. But part of the agreement was that they couldn't do like any fantasy role playing on Harmontown because it would be competing with their own show. So they switched to doing Shadowrun, and that's kind of why they were playing Shadowrun, because they would get in trouble by the studio for doing like a fantasy RPG on the podcast for free. So yeah, they kind of came back around to it after a long time, but it felt like kind of that the whole magic of it in the beginning was kind of lost, so they never really got around to it. And now Harmontown's over, so that was a chapter in my life that is closed.
I take it you're a real big Dan Harmon fan.
Oh, I love Dan. I'm more a Dan Harmon fan than I am of like actually like his stuff for some reason. I just like him as a person. And like I always love just listening to him talk about like all the behind the scenes stuff, or like his whole process of selling a show was he would sell 2 shows to like 2 different networks, and then he would just he would procrastinate actually writing the shows after they would give him money. They're like, "Okay, we're giving you this money, now write a pilot." And he would be like, "Okay," and then he would just procrastinate on writing the pilot, and his agent would be calling him, "Hey, you got that pilot written?" He's like, "Oh, get it," and he just wouldn't ever do it. So he just kind of like Dan Harmon is like a person, because he came from, I want to say Nebraska, no, Milwaukee, I think.
That sounds about right.
And he didn't come from any Hollywood type stuff. He didn't come from any of that, and so I feel like he's one of those people that kind of fell upwards or failing upwards or something like that. But yeah, because he's never really been in like the forefront of anything, but he just is kind of everywhere for some reason. But yeah, Harmontown was great.
Yeah, honestly, I'll say his name. I feel like his name really wasn't out there too hardcore until Rick and Morty came out.
Yeah, I really don't think so.
That was also around the time Twitter was getting really big, to where individual personalities kind of get louder on there, and Dan Harmon being unapologetically him all the time, he was getting a lot of stirs on there, and I feel like that helped get his name out there more.
Yeah, that, and at one point he actually deleted his Twitter, and I don't know if he's actually restarted it, but at one point he deleted it. Just over preemptive stuff, because people were starting to it was after God, what was his name, the guy that was doing the director that they went through his Twitter and saw some bad joke he had made over like 10
James
years
Gunn.
Ago. Yeah.
Sadly, that's a common occurrence, but James Gunn is who I think you're talking about.
Yep, that's him. And he had seen that people were doing that, and so his first reaction was, okay, time to delete Twitter, because if people are if people are going over your something you said 10 years ago on Twitter and getting you fired from jobs, then I shouldn't be on Twitter. So,
That's fair.
and
Yeah.
then that almost had like a like the opposite effect, because then he deleted his Twitter and people were suddenly like, hey, what does Dan Harmon have to hide? And
It's the Streisand effect.
yeah, and they ended up digging up this video that he had done for his weird I can't remember what it was called, but it was like some weird I can't remember what it was called, but it was like a weird show that he did. It was like where people would submit shorts to it, and it was like a live like award show almost, and they did it in seasons where people would just show up to this little theater and they would just present all the shorts that they've made, and they would do it like once a month. And it was like him and a few other people started it, and one of the shorts that he had done for that was where he sneaks into someone's house and has sex with a baby doll, and that video surfaced after he deleted his Twitter.
Okay.
And so he just
I remember.
He went radio silent after that one. He didn't address that for I think a year.
That brought back some things I wish I didn't see. Because as soon as he said that, it all came back to my mind. Like, oh, he did that.
Yeah, that was yeah. So yeah, that's the story of Dan Harmon. But yeah, so he Shadowrun, I guess. It's a really weird segues, right?
What a rabbit hole.
Yeah. I mean, that's basically my podcast in a nutshell.
Oh no!
We just oh man down.
Fallen monk fallen.
Man down.
I have to get one joke in a podcast every time.
Well, there's a quote you can use. I somehow absolutely slapped the crap out of my headphones cord. Trying to move a bit.
That happens to me all the time.
Yeah. What I was going to say was that just to finish the Dan Harmon thing, that always fascinated me because I was a big Community fan. Like, that was one of my favorite shows in high school. Like, I absolutely love that show, and it just kind of disappeared, and I was like, oh no. Then when I looked up when I got really into Rick and Morty, I saw that I was like, I wonder what his past is, since he's apparently been doing comedy for a long time. Then I saw he did Community. I'm like,
yep.
How did these two shows come out of the same guy?
Yeah.
And Monster House.
Yeah, I want to say a lot of Rick and Morty. It's a lot of Justin Roiland. I think him and just Dan Harmon kind of combined forces, and Dan Harmon mostly produced the show. He brought his technical like show running abilities to it so that the show could happen. And I think now Justin is a lot more in control these days.
Right.
It's really interesting the how versatile he is with some of his stuff.
Like, it's impressive. And yeah, I really enjoyed Harmon Quest. It was pretty interesting, honestly. Like, the idea of it, I really liked. I thought it was a cool concept for D&D.
Yeah, just like a live show, and they have like different guests every week.
Oh yeah, it was chaotic, it was messy, but it was just enjoyable.
Yep, that was Harmontown. I mean, I listened to every single episode of Harmontown. It's like got to be 400 or 500 episodes, and so like I'll listen to like another episode here, or I'll listen to old episodes here and there, and it just like gives me like this nostalgic feeling because I'm like, man, I'm like Harmontown's over.
Yeah, I'm sorry I brought those memories back up.
That's all right. I mean, I listened to it like just last Friday, so I'm like, I did it to myself already.
I've been debating on looking into it just because I'm not the biggest Dan Harmon fan. I like him, but I don't love him as a person like you do. I don't think anyone can. But
he's an insane character, that's for sure. Have you heard of
Jeff Bryan
Quibi?
Davis? Though I really like him.
Oh, I love Jeff Davis. He's so good in Harmontown.
Yeah. Being a big Whose Line Is It Anyways fan,
Yeah.
I love that dude.
Yeah, he's awesome. Have you heard of Quibi at all? Have you heard that?
Who hasn't heard of Quibi? They threw as much marketing money as they could.
Okay, I don't want to because it's like a weird phone thing. So I don't want to like be like, "Oh yeah, so that Quibi thing, right?" and then be like, "Oh, what's Quibi?" But one of the shows
it is
on
weird,
there,
but they forced it so hard.
Oh yeah, one of the shows on there. I haven't watched it, but it's ran by Dan Harmon's girlfriend. I don't think they're married yet. I think they're gonna get married, maybe. I don't know. But it's basically about her, and she runs the show. I can't remember who's in it, but it's about her life and Dan Harmon's sex doll. Because Dan Harmon has a sex doll.
Oh, I remember now.
It's called
Yeah, I saw
I think.
Yeah, I saw a commercial of that earlier. I didn't realize that was Dan Harmon.
Yeah,
Wait,
that's Dan.
he's,
That's Dan. So it's basically a show about Dan Harmon's girlfriend.
But that was Anna Kendrick, I think.
Yeah,
she was Dan
Anna
Harmon?
Kendrick. No, she's not. His girlfriend's running the show, but it's not her. In
Okay.
The show. Yeah. It's her name's something. Her last name's Keller. I can't remember her first name though.
So that's a couple I never expected to see.
Or no, it's Heller. Last name is Heller, I think. I don't know.
I don't know.
Oh, it is an H, because someone made a joke about how he wouldn't have to change out any of his monogrammed bath towels if he changed his last name.
There we go.
But yeah, that's that. I like Dan Harmon a lot. He's a crazy guy. He's fun. I like Justin Roiland a lot. Did you know Justin Roiland also had a podcast? Way back in the day.
It sounds about right, but I didn't know that.
Yeah, he had a podcast called the Grandma's Virginity Podcast, and
That does sound about right.
He started that in 2010. It went through about 2012, and then he did like a couple straggler episodes after that, and it's pretty much dead. But he actually started his podcast like well before Harmontown, and that was another one of Dan Harmon's inspirations for doing his own podcast, was because Justin already had one.
Interesting.
But I think his inspiration was that he had some weird like manic ADD episode and bought a bunch of audio equipment and was like, okay, I gotta make some use out of this. Let's get a couple friends and start a podcast. And it was like 40 episodes of him playing farts on a soundboard.
It's also interesting because that was really bit before podcasts really took off. Like now, it's a really big market, but back in 2010, it was a lot lesser known.
Yeah, at one point he mentioned, he was like, "Yeah, I'm spending a lot of money to keep this podcast running because back then it wasn't just a cheap thing you could do. Because you actually had to pay for hosting. Now you can start a podcast for free."
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, it's an interesting medium how it's changed. I mean, the entire entertainment medium really has flipped on its head because you think now someone from their room can make an entire movie or album or something now, when back in the day that was unheard of.
Yeah, now it's like, shoot, people make their whole livings from their bedroom.
Yeah.
I mean, how many people make tons of money on Twitch just streaming from their bedroom?
Yeah. Yeah, that's an interesting question for both of y'all. That's something I've wondered. Do y'all ever think Hollywood will itself actually become out of style or just a thing of the past? That big media source?
I don't think so, because there's still too much money in it. there's so much money in it that they can force all the marketing, so.
Yeah, I feel like that's going to be a thing for at least, not like in the next few years, Hollywood become a thing of the past. I'm talking about way down the road. Because right now, it's got the older generations and a lot of people in our generation that name still holds a lot of weight. But for us, we're kind of growing up to see entertainment in a different light that anyone before us would.
So I think this kind of scenario here where everyone's like isolated, a lot of productions are kind of put on hold. This won't affect like long term, but it's showing people that a lot of content can be created with not as much effort as what's going on in Hollywood. You can hire somebody in their bedroom to edit a movie with CGI, all that stuff. So possibly down the line, if like the old money kind of gets out and more along the lines of content creators making their own content to the point of Hollywood quality and actually competing, maybe.
Yeah, and you can see that too with a lot of like this bedroom stuff that TV shows are doing and talk shows are doing, where like you can tell who on a show is production savvy and who's not. Because you get like there's like the SNL stuff where they're doing stuff at home, and they're like, you'd think that you would get some better quality out of these people who are professionals instead of just being like, I'm this big millionaire and I'm using my iPhone. It's like, really?
Yeah.
It sounds like they should have consulted some video game streamers, right?
Oh yeah, you look at Twitch streamers, Mixer streamers, all that stuff. Like, they know sound, lighting, all that stuff, while also trying to be a personality.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. And that brings us back to Darren Harmon in a weird way, because I took a bite of my chicken nugget at the wrong time. But someone had gotten onto the stage because one of his things was he would bring people onto the stage and they would talk, and it was someone who was like young. They were at the time they were maybe 19 or so, and she had a question for Dan, like, what would you have for advice for someone like me growing up in my age? Like, we have to know everything in order to make it, because back in the day, like, you could just sell a show to somebody and they'll give you money and then you just spend it and have someone do lighting and have someone do the camera work, and now it's like it's so oversaturated to even get into Hollywood or anything that you have to be a single person, that you have to be the personality, you have to be the camera person, you have to be the lighting person, you have to do all the social media and promotion, you have to do the editing, like you have to do everything. And he was like, he's like, I don't envy people growing up now, because you guys have to know how to do so much more than what I had to know when I was getting started. So that was kind of a really crazy insight. Then he's like, I don't know what advice I could offer other than to his thing that he said that I kind of stuck with me was, he said to build your own antenna, like invest in hardware and invest in infrastructure somehow. Like, if you can save up money, build your own computer servers. That way that in 20 years, when Google or Facebook or whoever decides that they don't like what you're saying, they can't stop you because you're not relying on 100% on their platforms. And so that's kind of what I've been doing over time. Is I actually do have servers. I don't have anything set up, but I want to get to a point where I can just do all my streaming from my own website and everything, but still use the other websites. But if we ever get kicked off for whatever reason, I'm not saying that like I go against the grain or anything, but you never know what's going to happen in the future. Like, something could just get shut down and it's like, okay, or something like Twitch or Mixer, like they could be like, okay, we're gonna get rid of the partner and affiliate programs and how many people are making money off of that, and suddenly boom, nothing. So basically his whole thing was like, even if they take you down on the major platforms, your signal will still be there and you can get it to people that want to hear it. So that's kind of something I strive for.
And that's kind of like go with that. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
All right. Also, to kind of go with that is like, not only do you have to learn like all the different equipment, tech, how to even be a personality, all that stuff. You also have to learn how to make money in it. And that's a skill all in its own, where, as we mentioned, Hollywood, they know how to make money with it. So with Twitch, a lot of people only settle with the affiliate program or the partner program, but there's way more than that. You have to almost find out how to make money off of yourself, off of your product that you create, because just buying lights, just buying a mic, all that stuff isn't going to actually pay for itself.
Oh yeah, you gotta get out there, and part of it too is like you're building a brand. Is the whole thing is you're putting yourself out there. You want people to be familiar with you, and then once you have the numbers, then you can go and be like, hey, I have these numbers. Do you want to sponsor a video? Do you want to sponsor something on my show? And then you start raking in that money once you have the numbers. Or the huge thing nowadays that I think is making a lot of stuff possible that never was before is the crowdfunding and the fan funding. You look at stuff like Patreon or Coffee, I think is how they pronounce it. It's the KO-FI.
Yeah.
Be like coffee. Buy me a coffee.
I call it
like
Ko-Fi in my mind, but it probably is coffee.
Yeah, I read it as Kofi, but I'm pretty sure it's coffee because the whole thing is like, oh, buy me a coffee on coffee. But you have all that type of stuff, or building it yourself. I know people that have built their own version of like their own. It's like Patreon, but just for themselves, and it's a cool thing that like people out there are willing to pay for what they want to see. So
then
you
there's
just
merch
gotta
on top
build
of all that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you get merchandise. I mean, that's a huge thing too. Like once you're able to get rolling on merchandise, you can make a lot of money. And so that's kind of like the big thing is like you build your numbers, and then you use that to propel yourself and propel your show, and then you bring a bigger value to your show by putting yourself out there more. I mean, if you're able to reinvest more money into your own show and improve on your own show, then you're going to draw more people in.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And it's what you said, that's some good advice a lot of people should hear, because I remember that was a big complaint. I remember in particular, what was his name? He goes by Jungle Jimmy now, but I don't really know a lot about him. I just know he was a controversial YouTube figure because he never really did anything controversial himself that I know of. If he did something messed up, it's completely out of my head. I just knew he mainly, his channel was really centered around covering the Elliot Rodgers story and making fun of it in a lot of ways.
Okay.
And he was making money off YouTube. He was doing really good at it, and then his channel got completely wiped because since he was talking about a serial killer's manifesto, it was considered offensive and all that, and he got enough strikes for his channel to get taken down. And his main complaint he was making was YouTube said it was okay, then changed their mind and said it wasn't, and took away all the work he put into it.
Hmm.
And he had to start over from scratch with a whole new channel because of it. And
that's rough. That comes with the territory of relying on other platforms. Is you got to play by their rules, and sometimes those rules can even change. So it's always good to be mindful and be careful in that regard, because especially like lately that I don't see too much buzz about it now, but there was that whole thing where that law that passed that would allow, like, you would be responsible
Article
for
13.
Yeah, that's it. Where you would be responsible if you were to produce content for like kids but advertise on it or something, and then they would fine
Article
you
13 is something
huge.
different, but I know what you're talking
that's
about.
okay. Yeah, what's the one I'm thinking of? I can't remember the name of it, but
I think it was like Child Protection Act or something like that.
COPPA, that thing.
COPPA, yeah.
Yeah, I know. People that just removed all their videos from YouTube after that went through, because they're like, I don't want some random person to review my video and then deem that it's trying to get around and be for kids when it's not, because it's about video games, and then I get fined like $13,000 a video. I can't afford that.
Wait.
Yeah,
I
there's
remember
a
this
gray
came up
area.
when
Yeah.
this came up when I was on your show, because just that day for some reason I just had the Butters theme song stuck in my head, and I looked up the Butters theme song, and
no.
and it said it was made for kids, and
That's right. Yeah, you mentioned that.
yeah, like they now have this weird thing of you can't, you know, when you're on mobile and you can slide down the picture and it'll be playing on the bottom bar while you're scrolling through YouTube.
Yeah.
You apparently can't do that on kid videos for something. I don't get the reasoning behind that, but that's something. But it said I couldn't do that with that video because it's made for kids. I'm like, it's South Park.
Yeah.
Yeah, they disabled the picture-in-picture thing. That was weird. I don't get the reasoning behind that either.
Yeah, because that was dangerous in itself. Because that is a bad rabbit hole to be on. Of apparently animation was falling under the radar because it's animation. I think all of us who grew up around the time Newgrounds was really big. Not all animation's good for kids.
Yeah.
That didn't stop a lot of us, but we shouldn't have seen it.
Yeah, like now there's a very weird gray area because yes, there's still the thing where it's like, oh, you couldn't cuss a whole bunch because YouTube's algorithm is like, oh, well, advertisers won't want to advertise on your videos, all that stuff. Well, now you can't make it kid friendly because they can't advertise for kids. So you have to have this weird gray area where you say like one cuss word in the middle of the video somewhere just to make it not kid friendly.
Yeah.
But not enough to make it explicit.
Yeah, that's kind of oh, sorry, go ahead.
Good. I remember on the Cold Ones podcast, it got mentioned that by a contact I knew at YouTube, they said their way around it was for like, you don't cuss in the first few minutes because you're literally waiting on the manual reviewer to look through it, get bored, then click off the video.
That's a good point. Yeah, I kind of struggle with that personally with the podcast too, because when you're doing the podcast, there is like an explicit option to mark your episode or your podcast as explicit, and I'm like, well, I feel like explicit is almost going too far. I mean, there's a lot of like, you know, you can be explicit without saying curse words, and
that's a gray area in itself, really.
Yeah. And so I'm like, I don't want to mark my podcast as being explicit when all I do is say cuss words every now and then. Because so lately I've been resorting to say, hey, just a heads up, we say the bad words sometimes on this podcast. Just be aware. I don't want to like potentially put people off of the podcast by saying it's explicit and like, oh yeah, we talk about all the gruesome murder in these video games and explicit.
This is LitGamingArena. We get intense when we talk about our video games.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm like, we just say curse words. So I don't feel like, and I mean, that's another thing where like I kind of follow Giant Bomb where they do the same thing. They just say curse words every now and then, but they don't mark their podcast as being explicit. So I'm like, I think that makes sense for me to just mention it at the top of the episode and not mark it as explicit, because I just don't want to I don't want people to be like, oh, that's a dirty video game podcast. Dude, we can't listen to that. They're talking about all them hentai sex games.
Hey, this week we're reviewing Honey Pop Simulator.
Yeah.
Wait,
the Sun Deer Simulator.
Yeah.
No, I can't remember what it's called. I've never actually played it. I only heard about it.
So you passed. Passed the test.
Hang on, is my wife listening?
I hear
no, yeah, I only know about it because a friend of mine was playing it when that company that was making them games got really big, and somehow they were on Steam. I think some of them were on Steam anyways, and he just pulled up a Steam library and we were talking one day, and I'm like, what the heck is that? And he's like, and he's like, oh, it's this. You literally run what was it? I think it's you run a cam girl office. I'm like, how is this on Steam? Yonder Simulator Amy Lad on Twitch.
Yeah, Yondeer Simulator. That was it. I said Sun Deer. That's a different word.
Sun Deer. That's the one that's just mean, not murder.
Ah, okay.
I can't believe I know that.
That one looks like we went through an hour very quickly.
Oh, already?
Yeah.
I get 'em.
Wow, already 7:00. Yeah, time flies when you're talking to me, especially on my podcast where it gets up to 3.5 hours long.
I'll say that when you told me how long the podcast was, I was like, oh gosh. But actually being on it, it flowed really well.
Yeah, I mean, you just like you get into that groove and you just keep going. We didn't talk about D&D stuff all that much, but I did want to mention before I forget that my character in Cyberpunk 2020's name was Highway Brute.
Highway Brute, yeah.
That's cool. I feel like that's great for Cyberpunk.
Yeah, I was trying to find like a name generator for like a cyberpunk genre, and it was coming up with crap. So what I did was I just looked for a bunch of synthwave artists and I just combined names as I saw fit, because their names, that's a way better name generator.
That's great. That is genuinely great.
So that's what I did. I combined Highway Superstar with Carpenter Brute, and that's the name.
I love that.
There you go. So, why don't you tell everybody where they can find you?
Well, you can find us first and foremost at our website, lga.gg, and that brings you to basically just a blog-style website where we just post our episodes. But our kind of main place we hang out is Twitter, so you can just go to twitter.com/LitGamingArena or just search for LitGamingArena. You'll find, if you Google LitGamingArena, you'll find all of our stuff. Twitter is where I'm most active at because that's where we get kind of the most activity. Second to that is Instagram.
You're doing good on Twitter.
In a way, yeah. We have a lot of followers, but our interaction seems to be lacking lately. I've noticed, but maybe that's just because people are doing other things while being quarantined. I don't know. But yeah, that's kind of the main things. I mean, we're on Twitch and Mixer. We use Restream for whenever we stream. I'm hoping to try to do that a little bit more, but it's difficult when you're behind on editing shows. So instead of playing video games, you're trying to catch up on editing.
Mm-hmm.
So
I feel that.
Yeah. So those are the main deals where you can find us.
Right. Okay. Right before we wrap up, we do have a tradition on the show where right before we wrap up, we have our guests tell just whether it be their favorite D&D story, a funny one, a crazy one, whatever. One that you think would be really good.
Wait, to like tell a personal story?
Yeah.
Great. Okay.
Yeah,
I have a really good one. Okay, so on our missing role player found when we were doing the AOD or AO Doggies, the Odd Doggies campaign. I think it was all lost audio. I don't know if I don't know if they put it in their Patreon or something because we had an audio screw up. But we're all playing as dogs, and we went to like a church door and someone burst out running, and we all failed our I forget what check it was, but we failed one of our checks. Maybe it was like Constitution or something, but and the guy just went like piling through us and off running, and we were supposed to initially like stop him, but we all failed our rolls, so he kept running, and because of that, since we're dogs, our instincts kicked in where we had to roll to resist chasing the person running away. We were not supposed to chase him. But we failed those rolls, and off we went, and we were chasing this person, and it put us behind like 2 whole episodes because of how long it went, because it was a long chase. I didn't last too long. I almost immediately got caught by a guard. And yeah, and that was fun. But when we had to redo the episode, there was a rule where like, okay, because of time, we can't you literally can't chase the person because we need to get through these episodes now. But that was great. That chase scene was awesome. I hope that gets saved somewhere and is at least in a Patreon or something. I don't know.
That does sound great.
Oh, it was fantastic.
Yeah, I love that concept in general of everyone playing a dog.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you should check out that rule set sometimes. It's just it's called Dungeons and Doggies. They did like a Kickstarter for like the minis, but you can just get the rules online for free, I think.
Nice. Yeah, listen to the first episode of it. It sounded pretty fun.
Yeah, it was really good.
Thanks again for joining us, everybody.
Yeah.
Go check them out. Links are in the description below. Thank you all so much for watching. And I guess we'll see you all next time. Bye.
Bye.